Coming up in this edition of Media McKnight, is Taylor Swift punching down in her new album? Why the NRL is suddenly worried about the next broadcast rights deal? Craig McLachlan speaking out about the bullying he's receiving? A new twist in the AI copyright argument? And a couple of predictions from me about 2026. Welcome to episode 13 of Media McKnight. Hello, I'm Rob McKnight. With over 30 years' experience in the media, this is Media McKnight. Well, when Taylor Swift speaks or sings, the world listens. So when her latest album dropped last week, fans and critics went through it with a fine-tooth comb. The track that has made the most noise is track 7, Actually Romantic, a song seemingly calling out singer Charli XCX for things she has allegedly said privately and publicly. Of course, Charli XCX isn't named in the song, but there is no doubt it's about her, with lyrics like, I heard you call me boring Barbie when the coke's got you brave, high-fived my ex and then said you're glad he ghosted me, wrote me a song saying it makes you sick to see my face. But the song raises the issue of power imbalance, often something we only consider in the work environment, but Taylor Swift is one of the most powerful people in show business, and what she says has power, especially against those in lesser positions, i.e. the less famous. So can power imbalance exist in this form? Well, yes, absolutely. When Taylor strikes a punch, there is little the person on the receiving end can do. Charli XCX can respond in any number of ways, but it won't have the same power as Taylor's original hit. It was a knockout punch. Let's remember though, Taylor Swift has been the victim so many times in public, it's hard to keep track. One of the biggest being that horrific moment Kanye West walked onto stage at the 2009 MTV VMAs while Taylor was giving her acceptance speech for Best Female Video. He interrupted her to declare Beyoncé should have won. Swift felt humiliated. Now in her mid-30s, there's no doubt Taylor has the confidence to call out those who she thinks has done her wrong, and good on her for that. But do the rules change now that she has power and with all the power she's accumulated? While some might think it does, I would argue she still has the right to express herself through her music. Charli XCX sang about Taylor and disparaged her, so why shouldn't Taylor be allowed to do the same? Power imbalance is thrown around a lot, but it doesn't mean people should be allowed to throw stones without repercussions. Now, fans of Charli XCX can claim her songs come from a place of insecurity. They've all been doing that over the past week. But people like Taylor become the victims of that insecurity, and the result is still the same. Charli XCX is feeling what it's like when the shoe is on the other foot. And maybe, just maybe, that might make her think twice the next time she wants to diss someone. NRL Administrator Peter V'landys will be popping the champagne after his code did something that hadn't been done in a decade, beating the AFL Grand Final. A national total TV average audience of 4.460 million tuned in to Nine's broadcast to watch the Brisbane Broncos edge out the Melbourne Storm 26-22. The 2025 AFL Grand Final broadcast, in the traditional Saturday afternoon time slot on 7, posted a national total TV audience of 4.076 million. Now, the NRL result was obviously helped by having a Melbourne team in the grand final, but it's a result that will help the NRL in the upcoming broadcast rights deal, where V'landys is hoping for a record result. One fly in the ointment, though, for the NRL seems to be the reluctance of streamers like Netflix, Disney and Prime Video to become serious bidders. And that has surprised many, including V'landys. At the beginning of the year, the streamers were seen as potential players in helping set a new record deal. In fact, in July, V'landys and Andrew Abdo flew to the United States for talks with DAZN, Amazon and Netflix. So the federal government had been successfully lobbied to stop short of applying the anti-siphoning list to digital platforms, meaning Netflix and the like would be able to bid for the digital rights, with free-to-air broadcasters like 7 and 9 able to retain traditional linear rights. They'd still be able to bid for the digital rights, but they presumably have to pay big dollars to do it. I've spoken about this at length in previous editions and why this is bad news for sport fans who no longer have a TV antenna. Go and have a look at some previous editions of Media McKnight. So with all this in play, it was widely expected the streamers would pounce and drive up the price of the NRL rights. But that doesn't appear to be happening. One theory is the streamers don't want to rock the boat at this stage and are playing a longer game. A second theory is that our sports here in Australia don't translate for an international audience and are not worth the investment. It's a turn of events that has sent shockwaves through NRL headquarters, and now V'landys is fearing that Nine and Foxtel are now in the position of power when it comes to bargaining and actually might team up for a joint bid. In fact, he's so worried he issued this threat last week saying if they collude, it will be at their peril. He told the Australian Financial Review, "We will take the rights elsewhere. If they think they can behave as monopolists, they will be in for a shock." Now, according to the outlet, V'landys said he would take the football code elsewhere if incumbent broadcasters Nine and Foxtel submitted that joint bid. I'd like to know where. 10 might be an option, but the company doesn't exactly have the money to throw around at the moment, and V'landys still has to adhere to the anti-siphoning list. The games have to be shown on free-to-air television. 7 would have to make it work in conjunction with their AFL rights, and the NRL has already been upset at the AFL getting more coverage than the NRL on the Today Show, even though it was during the AFL's grand final week. So I don't think the NRL wants to play second fiddle to the AFL on 7. V'landys is right in believing sport is important to free-to-air networks in drawing audiences. But the sands are shifting, and he might not be able to get that record-breaking deal he was expecting. It's going to be fascinating to see the outcome of this one. Nine News Melbourne presenter Peter Hitchener achieved a rare feat over the weekend, presenting his 10,000th bulletin. The much-loved newsreader now fronts the weekend editions after serving as Nine's weeknight anchor from 1998. It was touch and go for a while whether Hitch would be in the chair when Nine decided to replace him as the weeknight presenter with Tom Steinfort and Alicia Loxley in January 2022. Thankfully, Hitch remains in place and has been able to mark this wonderful achievement. I've worked closely with him over the years and consider him to be one of the nicest people in the industry, and I really wish him nothing but success. The Productivity Commission continues to face fire over its interim report into harnessing data and digital technology, specifically the idea of allowing AI companies to bypass copyright laws. The issue has been under the microscope at a Senate committee hearing, where artists have had the opportunity to explain why copyright matters. And it turns out that was something not afforded to copyright holders during the research phase of the interim report. Green Senator Sarah Hanson-Young called out that fact when questioning co-authors Stephen King and Julie Abramson.
You've got numerous sentences that assert that this is an issue, and you don't say who says it. And when I look at the list of who you have consulted with for this interim report, I don't see any of the collecting societies on here. I don't see the music industry on here. I don't see the screen industry on here. I don't see news organisations and those who create news content on here in terms of who you actually consulted with and the participants.
Then Hanson-Young delivered the knockout blow when she pointed out who the authors had spoken to.
So you consulted with Amazon for your interim report. You consulted with Treasury. You consulted with... you did consult with the Australian Copyright Council. You consulted with MasterCard, you consulted with Microsoft, you consulted with Meta, you consulted with OpenAI, you consulted with Xero. I mean, you consulted with Deloitte, you consulted with a lot of other players, but you didn't consult with the creative industries. And so I'm really interested to know who these many parties are who told you this was a problem, that you needed that there needed to be an exemption or that copyright was an issue.
But have a listen to what co-author Stephen King told me on McKnight Tonight on the day the report was released.
We currently do not make any recommendations around copyright law. Let me be very clear that we are not making recommendations for change. We are asking, are our current copyright laws fit for purpose? Do they need changing? How do we make sure that Australia's creative artists get fair reward for their content? How do we make sure that the tech companies aren't just getting a free ride here?
While the authors say there are no recommendations in the report, King himself admits he is wary of making our AI laws too restrictive for fear of scaring off investors.
So we've been very clear. We're going out and asking for people to give us feedback. At one end, do we need any change? Maybe the current law's fine. Or do we need something like collecting societies? Or should we go down the path that some other countries have taken, like Japan, New Zealand, Japan, Singapore, the UK, and have a text and data mining exemption to our copyright laws so that it makes it easier for the tech companies to gather that information, that copyright information.
So hang on, are you saying that these companies should have the right to scrape our text messages?
What? No. We're asking, does the copyright law, is it fit for purpose? And we want to get feedback on whether it's fit for purpose and how it should be changed to make sure, if it's not fit for purpose, how it should be changed to make sure it's fit for purpose.
As you're going through this process, are you worried that Australia might fall behind if we go too hard with AI legislation?
It's clear from the European experience that if you go very hard in saying, right, we're going to have an AI Act that covers or tries to cover all uses of AI, what you end up doing is you create a huge amount of uncertainty and you end up with a lot of legal cases because disputes will end up in court about exactly what is covered by the law, exactly what the law means. And whilst all that's going on, you create uncertainty, which puts off investment. So we should learn from our friends in the European Union. They went down this path. The thing we should learn is that's probably not the path that we want to go down. We want to get this gap analysis done in a thorough, but preferably a fairly fast turnaround so that we can get the certainty to get the investment.
So that seems to suggest to me a lack of will in covering copyright owners, and that would be a bad thing. I've said this multiple times now, but if big tech wants to make money off creating technology that uses the work of other people, it's really simple. They should pay for it. After dropping out of the stage show Cluedo less than a week after his casting was announced, actor Craig McLachlan doesn't seem to be going down without a fight. Despite being found not guilty of sexual assault allegations relating to his time performing in the Rocky Horror Show, McLachlan has continued to face backlash to any work he tries to engage in. Now he is set to take part in a no-holds-barred interview with seasoned reporter Michael Caine at the Incredible Lives talk show in Newcastle, New South Wales. McLachlan has been very forthright about his intentions in this interview in a promotional clip on Facebook.
I just wanted to mention, if we can talk about the elephant in the room, the fight that I seem to still be fighting 8 years down the track. It's time to unleash that elephant. It's time to let him roam free. I'm going to be discussing things that no one was interested in discussing. People talk about public interest. It was so in the public interest to destroy Australia's gold Logie winning golden boy. But it wasn't seemingly in the public interest to go into detail as to why he was acquitted. And there's a reason for it. Now, I have behaved, I think, with dignity over these 8 years, and I'll continue to do so. But it's time. It's time to take the gloves off and let you know what certain people didn't want you to know.
Now, McLachlan's last big interview was with 7 News Spotlight back in 2021, and it sounds like there's a lot he wants to get off his chest. The event takes place Wednesday night at Flamingo's in Newcastle. A few weeks ago, I wrote an article called Australian Television Just Died. It was a no-holds-barred review of Seven's winning Arvo block, hosted by Alex Cullen. I'm sad to say the Australian television industry died on Monday the 22nd of September 2025 at 1 p.m, just 1 year short of its 70th anniversary. It brought us plenty of laughs, informed us, and was even sometimes controversial. But like the dodo, its time is up. That is the only conclusion I can come up with after the pile of shit that viewers were served up Monday on Channel 7. Jesus Christ. Now, it seems Nathan Jolly at Mumbrella took issue with my review, saying such lowbrow programming has attracted the ire of Australian media, the most strident of which was a day one review from TV Black Box's Robert McKnight, under the headline Australian Television Just Died. A scatologically obsessed McKnight, yeah, I had to look that up too, it means poo obsessed, once executive producer for Studio 10, called it a pile of shit, the biggest pile of horse manure, and a turd. Well, hang on. There was context, Nathan. Have a look. Seven's winning Arvo takes all that rich history, flushes it down the toilet, and has served up the biggest pile of horse manure I've ever seen. Honestly, you'll need a peg on your nose to watch it because the stench is so bad. Context. Anyway, called it a pile of shit, the biggest pile of horse manure, and a turd before undermining his credibility with the line, daytime television in Australia was once the home of innovation, variety, and compelling viewing. I was a little shocked at having my credibility attacked over that statement, especially when I went on to list some of the shows that have aired on daytime television, including The Midday Show, Beauty and the Beast, Good Morning Australia, The Morning Show, Studio 10, and that was just scratching the surface. Nathan, have you seen these shows? Have you Googled these shows? The Midday Show, the Mike Walsh Show were trailblazers. We had a variety show every day at midday. Jeff Harvey and his big band. Come on, Nathan. I stand by my statement. Daytime TV in Australia has delivered innovation, variety, and compelling viewing. Maybe you're too young. Maybe you haven't seen it. I can't work out why you would mock such a statement. So in my opinion, you have the credibility issue here if you don't agree with that statement. Now, you might remember I was the first person to go on the record and declare the project would not survive 2025. If you don't remember, I'm sure I'll remind you along the way. And I didn't know it would happen a week after I said it. So here are some more theories based on nothing but gut instinct. Number one, Peter Fegan at 4BC will move to mornings in 2026. After the removal of Bill McDonald, the chair is being kept warm until the end of the year by Jason Matthews. If the ratings continue to be an issue in the next radio ratings survey, I reckon 9 Radio might just change format to more reflect 3AW than 2GB. Now, look, I know that's something I have advocated for, but I still believe it would be a smart play. And maybe 9 are desperate enough to try it. Because Fegan would work really well in the morning slot, setting the news agenda for Brisbane. I actually think he would be very successful there. Number 2, 7 News Spotlight won't be back in 2026. While the show did make some mistakes that have been called out, it is now a shadow of its former self. As someone who worked on the show and loved the show, I don't even watch it anymore. It's gone from beating 60 Minutes to being a perennial number 2. Its stories don't make headlines and it goes missing from the schedule for weeks at a time. Look, it's just a feeling, but I get the feeling the love the network once had for the show is gone. But apparently it is making budget. But then that money is needed for other things as costs keep reducing. Again, nothing I've said in these two theories are based on facts, just an observation on trends and my experience in the media industry, and a gut instinct. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this edition of Media McKnight. We stream this show every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, and the article is published on TV Black Box every Wednesday morning. McKnight Tonight is back tomorrow night at youtube.com/@McKnightTonight. It's a different take on the news of the day. Take a look and join our little community. I'm Rob McKnight. I hope to see you then.